Thank you for joining us. Mike Hurst is with us, and we're going to talk a couple of things: the CRT, the school board, the Supreme Court, some of the edicts that came down from the administration. We'll do that on the other side of this break. But there was another story out there. We got word yesterday from the Biden administration about federal vaccine mandates that would affect nearly all workers in the private sector, and it's about as solid as a slice of Swiss cheese. Depends on. Here's what's happening. And I mean, this is happening at the highest level of the Biden administration. I sincerely believe this. People in power are making decisions so bad that they have to come back and backtrack because it could cause additional damage to the problems they've already caused. What I'm talking about is they've backtracked apparently on truck drivers, saying that they don't have to have the vaccine now. So I'm not sure if they're going to have to wear a mask if they're in the cab by themselves, but the supply chain is such he's made things worse as far as the supply chain is concerned.
Why is the price of agricultural products when I go to the store?
Now listen to this. Here's the president giving us, if you can't understand this, the clarity on this one is unbelievable.
Why is the price of agricultural products when I go to the store, why is it higher? Like for example, if we were all going out and having lunch together, and I said, let's ask whoever's in the next table, no matter what restaurant we're in, have them explain the supply chain to us. Think they'd understand what we're talking about? They're smart people, but supply chain. Well, why is everything backed up? Well, it's backed up because the people supply the materials that end up being on our kitchen table or in our life. Guess what? They're closed those plants because they have COVID. They're not. So it's a complicated world that people are facing.
So here's what I would do. You know how you have a dog collar that you can have the shock? I would put a wristband on him, and whenever he's thinking about doing off script, certainly an analogy, I'd send a little shock out to him and just remind him, or either wake him up at that time. On the vaccine mandates, have you ever seen any subject out there, Mike, that is more divisive and tailor-made to tear right from left?
No.
No. It
this
really
is incredible.
It is incredible.
Yeah, and I'm glad to see our governor and our attorney general really standing up with other attorneys general throughout the country to really fight back and push back. I mean, this is what we conservatives fight for. We fight for local control, and to have a federal government overreaching to such an extent that they're mandating what we put into our bodies is incredible. And so I applaud the Fifth Circuit for putting a stay on this, and I hope the attorneys general continue to fight for our freedoms.
Do you think it's a pretty good case?
I do think it's a case. I haven't read the case yet. I've read about the case, but I think it's a pretty good chance.
Since you were at that level as far as a former U.S. attorney, your thoughts on the upcoming December from the Attorney General as far as the abortion deal?
Oh, the abortion deal is, I think it's pretty exciting because I think we have a Supreme Court that will actually follow the letter of the Constitution. And I think we have an Attorney General who has put together a brief and an argument that really stands for what the Constitution says and not what a couple of judges on the Supreme Court from 50 years ago said it is.
Somebody asked me the question several days ago, why hasn't this been done before? It seems apparent, and I couldn't answer that.
Well, I don't think it was the right timing. I mean, life is about timing.
Because of the makeup of the Supreme
That's
Court.
exactly right. I mean, we finally have a court that views the Constitution for what it actually says. And this is an opportunity to actually go back, correct the wrongs that have been done by activist Supreme Courts in the past, and make sure that we as Americans follow the Constitution to the letter of the law.
How do you, just on a personal basis, though, since you have that transition now, and he's got his people in there as far as the U.S. attorneys in the state of Mississippi?
Well, actually, he doesn't. I mean, that's the fact that not a lot of folks are understanding is this administration is not putting a priority on getting U.S. attorneys out to the field.
So we still have Trump appointees in there?
We still have first assistant United States attorneys, which were the second in commands for Chad Lamar in Oxford and myself here in Jackson are still the acting U.S. attorneys here in the state of Mississippi.
So did you have to leave that? You didn't have to leave that position?
I did. I believe it was February, the president asked for the resignation of all U.S. attorneys, but I left in January before that happened.
Without any consideration administration who is the next man coming in.
That's correct, and that's been the case probably since the Clinton administration. Every president has come in and asked U.S. attorneys to step down.
Well,
so
if you're not going to make that political. For political reasons, all you're doing is just gumming things up as far as somebody else has got to come in and catch up on what you were doing.
Well, and it's kind of like here in the city of Jackson when I was U.S. attorney, the leadership viewed me as a political appointee, and I was appointed by the president and confirmed by the Senate. But at the same time, my job was to do justice and to seek the truth and to do my job to the best of my ability. But a number of people viewed us as political, and so we tried to not to do anything political, and I think we did a heck of a job not doing anything political. But at the same time, the president has his prerogative, and he can pick his U.S. attorney as he sees.
Is anybody nominated for that?
No, nobody has been nominated either in the Northern District or the Southern District of Mississippi.
What?
It's not a priority for this administration,
No,
Paul. Prosecuting crime, bringing down crime, addressing crime is not a priority in this administration.
I laugh at this one because some of the people who have to come before Senator Kennedy in Washington
try to handle their cases.
Why won't you answer my questions, Judge?
I'm sorry, Senator.
Here's my final one. What's your favorite color?
Blue.
Good. That was easy. I don't understand why you won't answer my questions. And you're not the first nominee that has come forward that refuses to answer a single question in 5 minutes. How can I vote for you if you won't answer my questions?
Well, Senator, if systemic racism were a matter that came before me,
I didn't ask that. I stipulated that wasn't going to be the case. I'm just asking your opinion. You sit on the bench. You think it's systemically racist. But I do understand your favorite color, and I appreciate that.
If I had the opportunity just to spend the time with having him and Mike Leach in the same room with a conversation,
I don't know if you could word it, Paul.
No, I wouldn't talk. Believe me, I would just listen.
To go back to DOJ for a second, this administration, the Department of Justice, is not focused on really combating crime. It's more focused on going after parents and really attacking them. That for what they perceive. I mean, they have said parents are akin to domestic terrorism. Mm-hmm. I mean, that's what they have said by implementing this memo that has gone out to the FBI and the U.S. Attorney's offices throughout the country, saying you need to put a plan in place to address harassment, intimidation, and threats made against school boards. And that's incredible.
Where is the Durham report? I mean, where does that?
Only John Durham knows that question, Paul.
I mean, that's just ridiculous. I mean, it's absolutely unbelievable because we have the Steele dossier. And we have that story. I think Lindsey Graham said this.
But I always assumed the Russian subsource was some guy in Russia deep in the bowels of the Kremlin feeding this stuff to Christopher Steele. The subsource was a senior Russian researcher at the Brookings Institute and an employee of Christopher Steele living in the United States. He calls up a bunch of people in Russia. Where do you think this information came from? It came from the Russian intelligence service. They played this guy like a fiddle. This was Russian disinformation. Some FBI agent recognized it as such. He told Steele, here's what I found, but it's not really reliable. Be cautious. Steele turned it into a Tom Clancy novel. The FBI bought it hook, line, and sinker and got warrants with it. The most successful political operation in the history of the Democratic Party, because Steele was on the payroll of the Democratic Party and Hillary Clinton's campaign.
And Hillary Clinton ought to be in jail for it, to be honest with you.
My hope is once John Durham finishes his investigation, that the American people will see that this Steele dossier and this Russian collusion theory was one of the biggest hoaxes perpetrated on America that we've ever seen.
Crime in the state of Mississippi, and also what's going on in the classrooms, and what's the involvement as far as the courts are concerned. We'll go through all those subjects coming up in a moment or two.